Hi guys, it's April, and I'm here to do the last month of February and what I have read. That was probably the most awkward way I could have phrased that, but I'm going with it. So this video is only going to cover what I read in the last half of February, so the last 2 weeks. If you want to know what I read for the first half of February, I will link it up above and down below in case you are interested. This time around, I read 7 more books, bringing my total for February up to 14 books, which is pretty on par for what I did for January, exactly on par what I did for January. So that brings my yearly total up to 28 books so far. The total number of pages read for February stands at 4,639 pages, which brings the yearly total to 9,583 pages read. I'm really close to 10,000. I'm kind of excited. My averages have stayed pretty much the same. So right now I'm sitting at about 162 pages per day and about an average of 2 days per book. But now that we have all that fun stuff out of the way, I will get into what I actually have been reading. The first book I want to talk about is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is a interesting story. How do I even explain this? This book is one of those books that is a lot of fun to go into if you don't know a lot about it. So I will give a kind of ambiguous summary. The premise is you are trying to solve the death of Evelyn Hardcastle, but you only have 1 day to do it. But that 1 day repeats itself for various different reasons. So at the same time of trying to figure out why Evelyn Hardcastle keeps on dying and how she keeps on dying, you're also trying to figure out why you keep on going through this day. I actually truly enjoyed it. It very much feels like it's an Agatha Christie novel on steroids. One thing I will note though is that this book is hard to get into at first. You're very confused. You go back and forth and you're trying to put pieces together. I ended up having to take notes as I was reading this book because that was the only way I was gonna keep things straight. And then it comes to an end and yeah. The next book I want to talk about is Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency by Douglas Adams. This book is so bizarre and I love it. You get to follow Dirk Gently as he is figuring out one of his many cases, and of course a lot of science and other things come into play. This is one of those books kind of like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is really hard to explain until you get into it. I seem to have found a pattern in my reading this month. It has Douglas Adams' quirky style along with all of math and science and things that I love, so this was fun. Then there was 96 Words for Love by Rachel Roy and Ava Dash. This was the book for February for our Tell It Again book club. Shayla over at Shae Geeks Out and I did a live show over this book. If you want to go check it out, I will warn you there are spoils, but we do get into some interesting topics. This is a story of Rhea in the summer between high school and college and her trying to figure out what she's going to do with the rest of her life. Her grandmother has just passed away, and in honor of her grandmother, she goes back to India for a little while just to figure out more about her grandmother and other things like that. Now, overall, I really enjoyed seeing the peaks of Indian culture and just seeing all the different topics that this book tried to take on. I wasn't super excited about the execution and the main character. The main character had a lot of character flaws that played into the book in a way that I couldn't get behind. So at some point in this book, I just started snark commenting in my notes. If that tells you how this reading went, not so good. And then I finally read A Cure for Dreaming by Kat Winters. I have a full review over this book if you want to go check it out. I go a little more in depth there, but this is the story of Olivia, who is living in the time of the suffragette movement. She's struggling to find where she stands in all of that, and then her father decides that she needs the unladylike thoughts completely erased from her brain. Of course, this goes not at all like anybody expected, and she just starts to see the world as it truly is. I really like this book. The way Kat Winters takes on the issues of gender equality and the characters she builds up in this timeline, I highly recommend that you read this book because Kat Winters has a way of writing characters that are flawed but beautiful, and just seeing the growth of Olivia as she's struggling through all the things that she really has to do. I like it. I liked it a lot. I'm not entirely sure why I decided to pick up this next book, maybe because there's just so much snow on the ground, but I picked up A Dog Named Christmas by Craig Kincaid. This is just a cute little short story about a town that is ultimately changed when they all decide to take in these rescue dogs before Christmas. So I always have issues when I read dog books. They get to me a lot because I'm just an animal person at heart, and I really like this one. I mean, it wasn't anything super special or anything like that, but it was just something sweet to read while there was snow on the ground. And then the next one is a cookbook. I had to show this one off because I am really truly enjoying this cookbook. This is Korean Paleo, and as you can tell, I've started marking it up. This is a book, and so it is something that I read, and if you like Korean recipes, I highly recommend it because it is just a really gorgeous book, and I like it. And last but not least, I picked up Calamity by Brandon Sanderson. This is the final book in the Reckoner series, and oh my fudgin' gosh. This book took me for a trip and a half. There's not a lot I can explain about it without ruining the whole Reckoner series, but the Reckoner series is centered around a world where some people suddenly gain superhuman powers. Except for these people are not very nice people. And in the end, there is a group of average Joes off of the street who decide that they need to take these epic people down. And that is basically what this trilogy follows. This last book, I really liked it. I really ended up sympathizing with one of the characters in their flaws, in their fears. I related all too well, and the way Brandon Sanderson just wraps up this universe and does the whole series in general. I'm not generally a superhero person, but apparently when certain people write about them, I really enjoy it. So those are all of the books I read in the last half of February. I really don't know how to wrap up this video besides saying, please go away, snow, and I'm ready for spring. Tell me down below what your favorite spring activity is, and I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.